My name is Devin Desai. I'm the Director of Global Cloud Architects. I'll be presenting on Panzura's cloud file system today, alongside with Stephen Carl. Stephen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Devin. I'm a member of Devin's team, so I'm a cloud architect and I work on the Cloud FS as well as other products. We have another one called Data Services, and I'll be demonstrating those two products.
And I'm Sean Pupanich. I am a solutions architect with AWS, and I'll be presenting on some AWS storage subject today, and I also support Panzura.
Awesome, thank you.
So if we're ready, I'd like to give you guys a basis on AWS, which Panzura will run on, and help you understand what the storage background looks like there. So AWS is a global company. We have 25 regions around the world. We also have GovCloud and secret regions here in the US. But the point here is really that we are trying to provide the highest level of service across the globe, so that whether you are working locally or internationally, you're able to scale very quickly. The secret sauce is really in these regional designs. So everywhere that we have a region, this is consisting of multiple availability zones. And so this is what allows us to provide highly available and highly durable storage and compute services. And so within each availability zone, there is one or more data centers. And then within each region, there's multiple AZs. And so if one availability zone or data center goes down, you still have the services able to continue to operate because of those other AZs. And so this is different than, let's say, let's take an example of our US East 1 in Virginia. So let's say you decided to pick your own 3 co-location centers and set up your own network there. And you chose 3 different providers to try and mitigate the overlap of failure. And when you have a solution like that, and you have a problem, if it's not that particular person's data center, they're going to say, oh, sorry, that's not my problem. When you're running on AWS, this entire infrastructure is AWS. So if there are any problems, you have active support and active management that is already working to make sure that everything works smoothly. And these AZs are designed to be close enough that they're within a 1 millisecond or so latency of each other. And so you're able to replicate data and applications very efficiently. For our public sector customers, we have the GovCloud. This is especially important for kind of advanced compliance needs. So if you hear words like FedRAMP High, ITAR, or DoD SRG impact levels, this is typically where you're going to want to go. One thing to note is our commercial regions already support FedRAMP Moderate. So if that is one of the requirements that you are looking for, you don't necessarily have to go to GovCloud to achieve that. Any of our US regions will support it. So AWS, in addition to providing storage technology and compute services, we have an ecosystem. So we foster both our technology partners like Panzura to build on top of AWS and support the needs of our customers, as well as consulting and delivery partners like Accenture or Rackspace, or even local development companies. And so what this does is it makes sure that you have a pretty broad range of people you can go to for help in building and supporting services on AWS. The core of our portfolio is this idea of object, block, and file storage. So most of you will be very familiar with block and file storage already. Object is something that is newer, or at least more cloud centric. It's also offered on-prem today, but it is kind of unique. And so we offer all three. So your block storage is going to be your typical kind of direct attached storage. Where Amazon EBS is unique is that it's not physically directly attached to your compute instances. So a common thing we see with customers is if they want to resize the compute instance that they're using or change to a different type. So if you want to change from, let's say, an Intel CPU to a AMD CPU and then add a GPU, you can basically just reboot that machine into that new instance type because your data is persisted separate from the compute instances itself while still being block storage. We do also offer a number of file systems. If you look at Panzura, they are also a file system that is built on top of our object storage. So what that gives you is kind of the best of both worlds. So your interface with Panzura is a file system, so you're using network attached storage, but then you get the scalability benefits and cost benefits of object storage, which is generally cheaper and more scalable than the other types. In addition to the core storage services that we offer, data transfer and migration is also a big part of it. So we offer both online and offline transfer support to AWS. So if you're looking to migrate, terabytes or petabytes of data, we have solutions in place to help support that. The core of the object portfolio is going to be S3. So what makes S3 really special is that we allow you to choose different storage classes for your use case. So if you need really high performance storage and you need to scale out, you can use S3 standard. And so this would be for frequently accessed data. If you're looking to, for example, replace your tape archives and you need something that's more akin to cold storage, then we have something like S3 Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, where it's not instantly accessible, but it's easily retrievable. And then the price of that is extremely low. And then we have a few in between where we have intelligent tiering, which will actually automatically age data into other tiers for you as you're not using it. So it's an easy way to kind of automatically save money if you're not sure what the access patterns are going to be. And then if you know that you're going to be infrequently accessing it, then S3 standard IA allows you to still get that quick instant access to your data, save on the storage cost, but at a trade-off of a little higher retrieval cost. And so you have this portfolio where you kind of balance what you need. Both our customers and our partners build on top of this to save money, and it's not uncommon for them to move in between different storage classes as they see their needs change. So that's another kind of big advantage of this whole thing is on-prem, you got to buy a big storage array, it's typically a 3 to 5 year investment minimum. And then if you find that your needs change or you need a little more performance versus a little more cold storage, you're kind of stuck with what you already bought. Whereas here, you can kind of change things on the fly. And so if you find something that meets your needs better or can save you money by, let's say, moving more data to cold storage, that impact is instant. So you start saving money the moment that you do that. And of course, in addition to storage, we have a massive compute layer. So we have Linux, Windows, and now Mac instances that you can run on AWS. We also have ARM CPUs and traditional x86 architecture, which would be your Intel and AMDs. But with ARM, we're also finding that the performance per dollar of those systems is quite good. So we offer that to you as a customer, and you'll even see that AWS is starting to switch some of its publicly offered services over to this ARM architecture so that we can offer better performance at a better price. And so whether you're looking for just kind of a range of, compute or database or, analytics compute capabilities, it's kind of all the things that you would need. You can mix and match in terms of more CPU or more memory or, higher network performance. You can add GPUs. It's really quite a broad range. And then from there, you can kind of customize how you consume that compute power and what price. So if you want to reserve things in advance and save money that way, you can do it. Or if you just need something temporarily, you can take advantage of our spot market, which can be as much as 90% off the list price if you need that kind of temporary compute usage and you don't mind it potentially being interrupted. So that's a big one when people are doing kind of distributed asynchronous jobs for data processing. Spot is a fantastic way to get a massive amount of compute power and still save a lot of money in the process. So Panzura is available on the AWS Marketplace. You can also launch it within your own data centers, and it communicates with our S3 Object Storage. But you have access to basically purchase it directly through the marketplace, or if you're already working with Panzura, they also have a bring your own license version. So thank you for your time on that, and I am going to pass over to Devin to talk more about Panzura.
Well, thanks everyone for joining to hear the presentation on AWS with Panzura. Again, my name is Devin Desai. I am the Director of Global Cloud Architects. A little bit about Panzura, what we are, what we do, who we are, what we do, right? So if you haven't heard of us before, a little bit about us. This year, we did win the Best Hybrid Cloud Solution of 2021, right? So we have some notoriety, some awards, a lot of momentum on our side, especially from analysts and third parties out there like CERN, DCIG, a number of different folks. So that's a really cool factor for us, right? Given the fact that we take customers' data and make it accessible. We'll get into a little bit of how and why customers love us, and we have notoriety in this space. So as Sean mentioned before, right, there's a explosion in unstructured data, right? AWS has a whole lot of different storage tiers, and really what's fueling this growth, right? If you pay attention to what IDC, Gartner, and some of these analysts are saying out there, it's that customers will double their entire storage in the next 4 years, right? That means they're growing 25% year over year, right? So the compound annual growth is basically going to get them to double in the next 4 years. And what's fueling that growth are things like personal documents, higher resolution images, devices, IoT, right? Media and entertainment, rich media content, those types of things are all contributors to this unstructured data. So in a nutshell, Panzura is an unstructured data management company. If you take a traditional enterprise customer and you look at their data, right, they have buckets and storage silos kind of spread out across their infrastructure, across their sites or regions, or even in the world, right, if they're a global company. This is a big problem when it comes to security, very large problem when it comes to just gaining insights and knowing what's happening to your data, right? If you don't have an access layer or an analytics layer on top of that, how do you know if you're vulnerable or if you actually have data spillage across, compliance regions, for example? So, at its core, Panzura does really well when it comes to being a global file system and taking all of that unstructured data and centralizing it in the cloud. AWS would be the back end for that. But on top of that, where we're going as a company is we give you, as a customer, insights and analytics around your data. So again, you can see if there are different versions out there, if you have bottlenecks in your global file system, right? If you have security holes, like different versions of SMB protocol or client systems that are connecting out there, There's a lot of ways for malicious actors come into your environment, especially from the client side. So having the visibility and the full scope of what's happening in your unstructured data set, it's a really, really important factor. And where we're going with this technology is going to be able to actually do ransomware detections in the first quarter of next year. So not only do we have full insights to what's happening with the data, we can create a baseline on user behavior and do anomaly detection on top of that, right? So it's a really, really nice feature, and a lot of customers are looking to us to innovate in this space to be able to provide better value around their unstructured data. Some other cool things that we were doing is global metadata tagging, right? So we had this concept of you have all this unstructured data in a Cloud FS, but what about being able to tag it with an identifier? So if you wanted to go back and do a quick search, you can search by the tag. This can be useful in things like machine learning, or if you're a data scientist, you can classify data in certain ways, so that you can go back and recall this data out of the global data lake, right? And it's really easy to now sift through all these billions of files that end up in your unstructured data Cloud FS. So really, really cool features there. Something else that our customers are asking for is mobile, right? Having a Dropbox-like experience, but on a secure enterprise platform. So that is something that we have coming out in early half of next year as well as deep content search, as being able to not only search files like we can today, but we can also take it to the next level and crack open those files and see what's embedded inside of those documents and give even further insights into your big data problem. But if we take a step back and look at the unstructured data market as it stands today, right? If you look at network attached storage, companies like the old legacy storage appliance vendors out there, they haven't really changed much in the last 20 years. And what I mean by that is I've seen for myself, and I've worked for these companies, their kind of transition to the cloud. All they're really doing is virtualizing their old a hardware appliance and turning it into a software virtual machine that lives in the cloud. That's not really fixing the problem of global file sprawl, right? All they're taking is that traditional storage appliance, virtualizing it, moving that problem from one place to another, right? So when I think about cloud integration, we think about actually being able to talk to the cloud natively in terms of S3 protocol, as AWS has really spearheaded this object storage movement when it comes to unstructured data. We can take ordinary object storage from Amazon S3 and we can enhance it by giving you the customer the global file locking around that data. We give you immediate global data consistency, and we do all that without introducing latency, right? So we make it look and feel like it's local down the hall, a storage appliance right next to you down the hall. And so this gives you fast performance. It gives immediate data consistency. That means if you have users in EMEA trying to access your file, they know that the file is going to be locked, or if it's open, and they can do edits on that file. That means you can also have one version of the file instead of having 3, 4 different replicas replicated across the globe, and now you have all of this data sprawl. So another reason why it's important to have a global file system that can introduce efficiencies around the entire data set. One of the key aspects to Panzura's Cloud FS is that we take all of that data and we centralize it into AWS's S3 object store. When we do that, the economics speak for themselves, right? If you go back to that traditional storage appliance mindset where you have to take data and replicate it from the West Coast to the East Coast and maybe across to EMEA and Asia, now you have all these copies of data, and you're paying for that additional layer of protection and that replication capability just to share your files across the globe. What we do is we centralize everything into AWS. We also compress it and dedupe it. So we have a lot of intelligence at the edge that optimizes the data set. And the net effect of that is that you slash your storage cost and your investment from a traditional storage appliance. So we just license our software, as capacity under management. So if you have 100 terabytes of unstructured data, but you're replicating that 3 times or 4 times across the globe, you would just come to us and say, hey, I need 100 terabytes license. And then you go and call AWS. Sean and his team will be happy to provide some object storage out there, which we know is very, very low cost comparatively to any other storage out there. And it's highly durable. And as Sean stated, it's built to be resilient, right? They have these availability zones where if a data center fails, not a big deal. You still have a secondary and a tertiary site to still access your data. So we partner with AWS really well to give you that high level of security, high level of durability, and we bring you that additional benefit of having very low cost in your infrastructure. Right. So again, just to recap, if you look at what Panzura is doing, we're the fabric that transforms AWS S3 storage into a high performance file system that lets your users access the cloud and make it as one big globally available drive in the cloud, right? So your users can collaborate. If we dig into that a little bit, I just want to show a visual of what that might look like in this scenario. So here we see a 3-site kind of deployment, very basic. We have New York and London, and then we have a kind of a 3rd site sitting out in the cloud. Let's call it US East, right, somewhere in Virginia. So at its core, what we're doing, right in the middle there is where you'd have your public cloud connection. This is going to be your Amazon AWS S3 storage, right? Again, low cost, standard cloud bucket. It's not, not very performant, but we kind of augment the performance by leveraging an Amazon EC2 instance in this example. So as Sean mentioned, we can go into the marketplace and deploy a Panzura virtual appliance or a node, which happens to live on an EC2 compute instance. So this node has CPU, it has memory, and it has local SSDs. And it's important because it's going to have all the hot data locally cached at the edge where the users live. So all of that read-write activity for new files, for file retrieval and file modifications, all happens out at the edge. So that means if I have a user in New York that creates a PowerPoint file, writes that, let's say 5 megabyte PowerPoint file, it gets compressed, deduped, encrypted, and stored out to AWS S3. But we keep a local copy handy for performance reasons. Now, what happens after that data makes its way to the cloud, as soon as that happens, all of these Panzura nodes are aware of the update, the modification via the cloud. And what's important about that is now any user in London or in the cloud or any application in the cloud can now see that new file creation, and a user can immediately come in London and open that file. And when that happens, the behavior is it'll check for that file lock. If the file is unused, then that user can now open that file, begin editing it, and close it. And again, those rights get committed back to the object store. Now, what's really important about this whole process is that Panzura's Cloud FS is an immutable file system, which means we don't allow deletion of any of the objects on the backend object store. That gives us built-in versioning of every file. So in that example where we wrote a 5 meg PowerPoint file, we had version 1 stored in the cloud. And when the user came in from London to make an edit to that file and then save that, we appended the changes to that original version. So now we have version 1.1 or version 2, right? So now we have 2 versions stored in the cloud. Why is that important? Well, because if you look at what a file is, if we break it up into its core, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros. So we actually have a bunch of pointers that are mapping to the ones and zeros that make up that file. Now, if we have something bad happen, let's say like a ransomware attack, this has been very popular in the news lately, right? I think I read just today that the average ransomware attack brings the customer's data down for about 3 weeks, right? That is very costly in terms of 1, having to pay a ransom, 2, just not being able to access your data, and having to try to restore that data is very difficult for organizations, especially if you don't have data insights to what and when and how that happened. So Steve and Carl will be demonstrating later on with Panzura Data Services how we can actually use the insights and the analytics engine to figure out this ransomware attack, right? The attack vector, maybe do a, look at the timestamps of how these files got modified over time and actually see how we can roll back to a point in time to where the data was clean. And that's exactly what our immutable file system does. Because we're doing reference pointers of all the blocks to make up the file, if a data came in, if a malicious, ransomware attack came in and encrypted a file, well, to us, it just looks like changes to the original file, right? It was written over, and we have a new point of encrypted blocks that's being referenced. But since we have an immutable file system, we don't care. We can just go back. If you're a user, you can just right click and go to previous version, and now you can access your old file again. You never have to pay a ransom. So again, this is another way a lot of our customers augment their CapEx investments and really save a ton of money, right? So back to that third of the cost of traditional storage. If you look at not only replicating your storage appliances from site to site, they're also paying a lot of money in backup, right? You might be paying for Veeam or for Commvault and some of these other names that are out there, not picking on anyone in particular, but these technologies are expensive, and keeping that secondary backup copy is expensive because you're also storing it somewhere else as well. So what we find is a lot of customers on our platform actually end up diverting a lot of this spend and doing less backups, therefore saving money and addressing this data explosion problem that they have. So this is another way we can also contribute to the return on investment for our customers. So now that you know a little bit more about how our cloud file system works, wanted to talk about how we can also help customers migrating to the cloud. After all, we are a hybrid cloud company. Because we keep everything in native format at the edge, right, in its native file format, we don't have to have customers re-platform and move into S3 cloud native. We are actually doing that work inside of our file system automatically. This means we can get customers from traditional data centers to the cloud much faster at a lower cost because they don't have to re-platform their data. Another key aspect to this is sometimes customers buy other companies or organizations, and they might have other cloud partners. By sheer virtue of just putting our Panzura nodes in either their data center in the cloud or the secondary cloud and pointing it all back to that S3 object store, you can have full multi-cloud access. So it doesn't matter where your data lives, as long as you have a Panzura virtual node or virtual appliance pointing back to that object store, you have full view and full visibility to all of that data, which means if you have applications in your data center that are slowly migrating out to AWS, you don't have to worry about that data dependency problem of moving the right applications at the right time, because all the data still can traverse back to that original source. So this is where we save a lot of customers time and money, again, faster time to market when it comes to cloud migrations. One other key aspect around our cloud file system is that we can prevent outages, right? So let's say you have a router that severed your connection out to the public cloud. We have a feature coming in the next 3 months called cloud mirroring that allows us to write data to AWS S3 and maybe to a private cloud object store as well. So if that router failed, you no longer have an outside connection, we can start redirecting all our reads and writes to that secondary object storage bucket, right? This is a very high-end enterprise class feature that no one else in this space has. This has been a huge requirement for our enterprise customers, and we're now happy to have in early access as of today. So who are our customers, right? We have customers across multiple verticals. We have banking, finance customers, unique use cases and workloads around finance, markets that close and open at different times across the globe. Healthcare or life sciences, these types of customers have long-term archive needs. This is where AWS S3 storage makes a lot of sense. Again, it's cheap, it's low cost, and you can park it out there and have an archive storage tier. We can accelerate that data in those applications at the edge, again, using our caching mechanisms. Media and entertainment. manufacturing, AutoCAD, that's actually our wheelhouse. We started this company with figuring out the problem around large files and data gravity concerns, right? Public sector, we are fully secured file system. We are certified in AWS C2S top secret cloud, very, very secure. So trust your data with Panzura Cloud FS. We are very, very good partners with AWS. So we'd like to invite you to see some product demonstrations. And with that, I'll transition it over to Stephen Carl, who will be presenting on our Cloud FS and Panzura data services.
Okay.
And this is Sean. Before Stephen takes over, I did just want to take an opportunity to answer a question from the audience. So there was a question about the plan for Canada to support multiple availability zones. So today we have one region in Canada, and it does support 3 availability zones right now. So that means whenever you write data to S3, or for example, on the Panzura file system, if you're using that region, you're getting 3 copies in 3 separate locations. Now, there is a plan to create a new second Canada region, which is expected in the 2024 timeframe.
Okay. So I'm Steve Carl. I work on Devin's team, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of some of the key points that Devin mentioned about our global file system. And then I'll get into data services and show you how that interacts with it as well. So this is just a diagram of the setup that I have. It's all in AWS. So I have a location in Virginia, the East region, and I have one in Oregon in the West region. And they're all talking, or they're laid on top of this S3 primary object store in AWS. So what you see here is I have a client. This is a Windows client that is connected to our Cloud FS node in the East region in Virginia. And then on the other side, I have one that is in the Oregon client. So what is happening here is we have a map drive. And as you can see, it's mapped to V for Virginia. And then on the other side, it's mapped to O. And this is simply how we connect to the global file system through these Cloud FS nodes. So I want to show you one thing real quick, is what the latency we're working with. And sorry for the busy screen here, but this is a ping command. So it's pinging Virginia to Virginia, which is less than 1 millisecond. And more importantly, we're pinging Oregon, and we're getting about 70 milliseconds. So that's kind of what we're working here as far as latency from each location to each location in our global file system. So now let's go into a directory, and we'll do it on each side. And basically what you're seeing here is the same global file system. Each location has its own connection to it, and we can see all the data just like we were in the same office building. So that gives you that kind of local feel. And like Devin mentioned, because we do intelligence at the edge, it's like you're going to be writing files and reading files and making changes, more like a local feel of working with a file system that isn't have this expansive mileage between locations. So both of them are going to see the same data in real time. So let's go to a different folder here, and I'll show you the demonstration.
Stephen, are you the latency between the sites?
Excuse me, it was.
Are you able to show the latency between the sites?
Yeah, it was 70 milliseconds. It was very small text, but I executed I'll show it again real quick here. So this right here, the average was 70 milliseconds. So I'll exit out of that. And there's another way with data services that we can see that as well. And I'll show you in the second part of the demo. So for instance, let's go to the Virginia client, and let's just create a new file. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll just give it a simple name, my first name. So now it's there. If I go over to the other side in Oregon and I just do a refresh, it's going to see that file. It's right there already. We didn't add any data to it, but for the purposes of this demo, we just wanted to show the speed of how that happens. Conversely, I can go over here and I can delete this file. And yes, I want to delete it. And then I go back over on this side to Virginia, and it's gone already. So let's go into a different directory and I'll show you an example that uses the global logging mechanism. So I have a file over here in Virginia, it's called pets. And I have a, pets put in here name. So what I want to do is I have the lock now, so I can make changes to this file and I'll make a change. And I still have control of it. I'll go over on the Oregon side and I'll open this same file. It takes a while to process, but it knows that the client in Virginia has control of the file, so it maintains the lock. So what you do over here on this side is you can open up a read-only copy, but more importantly, you can get notified. So when you click that, you'll get notification when that lock is freed and you're able to enter read and write mode. So I'll click notify. And then I'll go over to the side in Virginia and I actually just save the changes that I made. So I'll save this file and then I'll exit it. And when I do that, I'm releasing the lock. So then I can go over to the Oregon side and right here, it already says that that the read write is available. So I'll click that. I immediately see the changes that were made on the Virginia side, and then I can edit the file. So it happens that quick. These, it's not many milliseconds to work with from two locations that are that far apart. So let me exit out of here, and I'll show you an example that has to do more with ransomware protection. So as Devin mentioned, we have immutable data rights. So we never overwrite any data that anybody's made to a file. We just keep making another snapshot. So that's always maintained and it's where it is. So let me click this file right here. Uh-oh, there's a password protection on this, or maybe even encryption. I'm a user, I came in, maybe an hour later or in the morning, and now I can't access the files that I really want to work on. So what do? I don't really know what to do. I might call the administrator or IT and ask them the question of why I see a password on my files now. And they may not know. It might be determined at that point that they'll look around and they'll see some other anomalies that are, and come to the conclusion that they're possibly under a ransomware attack. So let me cancel out of this. In the course of action that we can take is we can go to this file and we can revert it to a previous version. And I'll show you how to do that. But first I want to show you at the directory level what that looks like. So we can
Steven
recover.
does that. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that there was a QLocker ransomware attack that used 7-zip as a way to compress files and encrypt data with password protection. So that's actually what we're simulating in this example is a password protected compressed file.
Correct. Yeah, I got really creative here. So what you're seeing here is the versions that you can revert back to. This is the latest one. But what I want to show you is these go back to the beginning of time when you created this file system. So this is almost 3 years ago. And we can actually take a look by clicking in this. I can open it. And it's going to give me a copied version or a visual copy of what that data or what this directory looked like back then. We could actually revert to that. Now that's probably a little overkill because we've made a lot of changes since then, but that's just to show you how far back we go and how we increment up. So I'll look in the latest one and I'll open it again. And here we have this file, but chances are if this was overnight, if I revert to this copy, I'm just reverting it to another encrypted version. So what I can do here is I can go through these and search for a version of when that file was actually accessed the last. So let's go back to yesterday and I'll just pick one. And I see it again and it says, oh, that was accessed yesterday at 4:12 p.m. Okay, that's kind of giving me an indication of that maybe that might be a version that I could actually revert to. But I'm not entirely sure. So let's just go back one more version and see if there's any difference. Oh, I don't see it in there. So I didn't even have the file created then. So it must be the other one that I want to use. So let me click this version and then I just click restore. and it's going to restore this. So now it's pulling a copy of where this is located. It could be in the local, at the edge in the intelligent cache, or it could actually even be from the cloud. And how we're going to verify this is we're going to try to open the file again, and if we see that there's another password that needs to be put in there, then we'll revert back to another version. Or if it's fine, then we could just open the file and we're off and busy doing whatever work we have in that. So this is taking a little time. It's almost done. So what I did here is I didn't do this specific file. This is why it's taking long. I picked the folder. So what I really wanted to show you was just doing the snapshot of the file. But this gives you another reference point of, I think there's about a half a gig or maybe more information, and it's just taking a little bit of time. In the real world, you might ask your own IT administration to do that, and sometimes to reclaim and restore a folder could take a lot longer than that. So we have about 5 seconds left. We're pretty close. And we've restored it. So let me click OK there, and let me refresh here. And refresh on the other side. So I'll go back into the tarball directory, and I'll click this file. And I don't have to put a password in. So we've reclaimed the file. People can get to work on it, and we don't pay a ransomware fee because we don't care. And that's pretty important. So the next part of the demo, I'm going to enter into Panzer data services. Let me get rid of these here. I'll just simply sign in here. And this is available through a browser. So what you're seeing here is the dashboard, and it gives you some pretty basic information. So the critical ones are, these are all the nodes that are able to actually ingest their data. And what we do is we actually provide a free version with CloudFS. This is a new version that just released this week. It's 2.0. And then for the other functionality on some of these actions that I'm just hovering over here, that is licensed. So you would have to buy a license to have additional functionality. So in this case, we have over 2 million records indexed, and that's all the nodes put together. And what I really want to show you is some of the first thing is analytics here. So this is data analytics, and gives you a lot of very important information about what your storage is doing. So it gives you storage counts, age, the number of total files, the total storage you're using. And real important here is this blue is just indicating what's in the cloud. And we have a very, very small bit that's actually just hot. So that might not be typical of a system that is actually under heavy usage by users, but it just gives you an indicator that everything's got to go to the cloud eventually. I'll scroll down here, and there's some different information here on file size distribution. So it kind of gives you some key indicators of the size of files that people are using, and so on and so forth. We have storage free volume change. This is a demo version or a demo lab that we're using, so it doesn't show a lot of variation here. But once again, if it was a busy global file system, it would probably show something a little more interesting. And then finally down here, you have file type distribution. So you can see what kind of files are taking up most of the storage. What I also want to mention is this is the Panzer Cloud FS, but we also have the capability to use other people's storage appliances or capabilities. We can input their data with this. So if I just click on that, I could actually import data from a NetApp or an Isilon. So we don't have a plugin, we'd have to enable that. on their side, and then we can add them and we can ingest their data, their metadata, and get all that valuable intelligence to take a look at what's going on in their file system. So let me go back to the data analytics, and then I'll switch to the audit analytics, because this gives a lot of really important information as well. So it'll give you your top active users. So just at the click of a button, you can see, who's busy the most, or if it's maybe in the case of a ransomware attack, you see somebody that doesn't even belong there, or a user that doesn't usually do too much, and they have an uptick that seems kind of odd. You can have top access files. Below that is top access folders. And then you have like a combination of that. You have folders, your active users, bytes added and bytes removed. And one important thing I'd like to mention is if I click on actions here, I can export this into a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. And that's very important. You might want to collect this information. You have to share it with somebody who needs this information. And it's very easy to do that. And each one of the things that I showed you here on this page, you have that action available to you. So let's go to the kind of the meat of the product on, why it's so good. You can do all these file searches in one location. So let's go to search. And what we have is, we have these filters that you can enable to search your Cloud FS nodes. So what that looks like is these are all the active nodes that you are managing and you want to have information for. And simply just to start a search, you can just go in and click enter. And that fast, it comes back with almost 1 million records. And I'll spread my screen out a little bit more here. And it gives you some basic information, name, path, the node that it is being managed by, size, date last modified. There is the export button again. You can export this information. You probably wouldn't want to do that with almost 1 million records. So that's where you would go into the search and kind of fine tune. So we have different filters below here. Age. So we can do it by age. We can do it by hot, which is 7 days or less, or warm, which is 7 to 30 days, or the cold data that is just older than 30 days. We could put a date range in if we want to just focus in maybe on a particular day. And of course, we could change whether we're doing just files or folders, or we can do both. So what I'll do is I'll do a different search. I'll do one for warm 30 days, and I'll have these two selected. And no matter what you select here, you could just click an apply button. And if you really want to dig deep, you can see the syntax. If you click the advanced button down here, this gives you the exact syntax of the search. You can actually copy and paste this into file if you feel that this is a search that you're going to do frequently, or you just want to keep track of what you did. But there's also another way to save this search. If I scroll up to the top, sorry about that. Up here, you could save the search. So I could click save, and I can give it a name, a name that means more to me than just all that syntax is not really what you would want. And you can click save. I won't do that in this case, but where you'll find is this ribbon over here in the search bar, and it gives you the names of the searches that you've saved. And you can click on these, and then it'll search. And search tips gives you the syntax of what you would need to fine tune your searches to give you exactly what you want. So let me do that search. And we only have 14 results. So that's what shows up from a warm data temperature in that other parameters I put in the search. So that kind of fine tunes it. And then you can see that this is a folder. So this gives you just information that that's where it is. And you can save this search as well if you want to just search in that folder. So let's go to the next important action, and this is audit. Now it provides all the same capabilities as search, except it has a few different ones that add to filtering into the data on user actions. So we have different actions that we could search for. Copy, create file, they're listed right here. Maybe you're getting back to the ransomware example, maybe you really want to find out who's been removing files or doing something that normally wouldn't be done, like renaming them. So let's just deselect some of these, and we'll just, somebody might have read a file, maybe lock the file, copied one, or maybe created. We'll get some of these other ones we're not maybe interested in move. So we'll just search on this, and we'll select the search. And now what you see is it's searching just for those parameters. And if we scroll down, it'll show, oh, a lot of users are doing a remove here, or at least this particular one. This person has been, well, look, this is like a remove of a file. So maybe we should go in and search on that user to see exactly what they're doing. So let's go below here. Sorry about the scrolling. So let's apply all. And let's go below. You can select a date and a range as well. And then just let's select a user. And let's click apply. And this is taking a little while to go through and get all these records. So we have 785 actions found. So now this gives us the ability to go in for this specific user, and we can do some further searches to find out what they're doing. And maybe this is, you know, some user that got hacked and they're under a ransomware attack. So you can find these files, and then you can work with your administrator and go back into Cloud FS and then revert them to the previous version. However, there's another way that you can revert files to a previous version, and that's using our recovery action. So once again, the filters are kind of the same here. We're just going to search in all of them. But more importantly, what we have available to us is we still have document on it. We have this enabled by default. So what it's going to do, it's going to search for files that have been snapshotted. You might have some new files in there that haven't been through that process yet, so it won't show them. They might not have been ingested yet. So let's just click apply here. As you can see on the far right hand side here, there's a version. Like this one in particular has 2 versions. So what you can do is you can clone this file, and there's 2 options to do that, to your original directory or a different directory. So if I click clone here, it's pretty easy. You're gonna create a task, you're gonna give it a name that makes sense to you, and then you can either recover to the original location, or you can recover to a specific filer, or you can add a new path. You might want to start recovering these files in a new path to create it just as part of your mitigation for ransomware. You might not want to have that much faith that that original directory it's in has been cleaned and cleared out. It still might have some problems. So this gives you the ability to just go in and put it someplace else. And tasks, we were going to create a task. I'd done a couple of these just recently, and this is just keeps track of the tasks and what the status was that it completed. I didn't mention this previously, but you add your email address in there, and per task, when you run it, it'll email you when it's completed. So let me go further down here, and let's talk about Pulse. So let's select the Cloud FS node. This one, oh, that's disconnected, and I'll mention that in a little while. So now we're going to collect a lot of information just on how your system or how your nodes and your storage is actually performing and other critical information. So, you know, this in conjunction with analytics is going to give you a lot of real-time information on, you know, some of this information that you want. So if we just scroll down here, it shows actually one nodes. Sorry about that scrolling again. So it gives you CPU utilization, and this is more like a systems level view, and it gives you cache hit ratio and other information, which is interesting. But one of the things I really was kind of cool, we were mentioning the ping command. So if I go to events here, it comes up with a nice kind of schematic. So it's basically showing me kind of map of what I have going on, and I don't have the so let me go back up and let me add the other file, or excuse me, node. Or another node. I'll add a couple more. And we'll go down below there again. And it's not showing it, but you will see all the different locations because they are actually all in the same location. That's why it's showing that. So let's go back up to the top. And it can give you critical information about your storage. So there's meta storage utilization and metadata storage. And it just gives you one click to get critical information on how to manage this. And that's pretty much it from this. I can go to cloud. There's one thing I'd like to show you here. And this is the site-to-site latency. So it can give you some pretty good information in regards to that. So in our case, I said what it was. Okay, and we select, and we can just do two site, one site to another site, and it won't be very interesting. The one I wanted to show you was our two other filers, but right now they're not showing up. But this is basically Pan Data Services, and it's a very valuable tool. Like I said, we're giving it free with the version 2.0 for our Cloud FS customers, and you could ramp up per licenses for the other functionality that you want. And if there's any questions, just let me know and I can maybe show you something if you want to see something else, or that's the demo.
We did have a question around costs in the chat. So Panzura Data Services for the centralized management and alerting features is actually free. We just launched that this week, right? So this pulse information and just kind of the dashboard view and many-to-one management or one-to-many management is all part of this SaaS-based platform, right? It's all hosted in the cloud. So you don't even have to provide infrastructure to run it. We host it all for you in the cloud. The add-ons would be for audit, right? So if you need to be able to audit users' activity and to do search on the files, right? The search capability, those are add-ons as well. And those are on a per user basis is how we license that product. So Panzura Data Services can be added on top of Cloud File System as a core cloud file storage. And again, you'll get enhanced analytics and management capabilities around the health of your data at a global scale. That's pretty much it. That concludes our presentation for today. I want to thank everyone for joining, the AWS team, as well as the rest of our audience. Thank you very much and have a happy Veterans Day. Thank you.